of JFN, I'm really happy to welcome you to today's conversation. All together now and talking about matching grants and how we can be helpful as a community to camps at this year and this season and during this COVID-19 era. And with that, I want to introduce Andres Bocconi, the CEO and president of Jewish Funders Network, to frame the conversation a bit more and introduce the other speakers. Thank you, Andres.
Thank you, Tamar, and thank you to our panelists and to all of you to join us in this conversation that I think it's going to be truly important. And just before a question of logistics, if you can be sure that while you're not speaking, you're muted. That's going to be, there's always in these calls a lot of background noise. So, or Tamar, if you can actually mute everybody. Okay, so now that I muted everybody and I can speak on my own, I can tell you like why I think this conversation is important. First of all, as a product of summer camp myself, I am biased towards summer camps. As a parent of two boys who cry every time they come back from summer camp, I'm biased. And as somebody who sees the impact that summer camps have in Jewish life, I'm biased. I think that camps is, and it's not just what I think, research backs me up here, is one of the most powerful tools we have to create Jewish identity and a passion for Judaism and for Israel. If you look at people in leadership positions in the Jewish community, most of them come from the camp movement. Or I always tell I haven't been a camp counselor for more than 30 years now, but I still use the leadership skills that I learned as a camp counselor that are more valuable than any MBA that you can get. Having this conversation now, it's critically important because what COVID-19 is doing is threatening major systems that support Jewish life in North America. The day school system is threatened. The human services system is under stress. The JCC system is threatened. The camp system is one of such vital systems for Jewish life that is now being threatened by this crisis. We can't afford to lose that platform for Jewish life. We simply can't. First of all, if camps collapse, to relaunch them is not just to turn them back on. We're talking about major operations, years of trust that families have built with the camp. And secondly, in this context, specifically in this context, having camps as a vibrant venue for Jewish education is critical. So I think that what we're going to be discussing today is very, very important, and I'm honored to be here with you. I think that it's also going to be very important because it's going to showcase an approach to philanthropy that for us at JFN is very important. This is not just about making grants, but about being collaborative, working in partnership, and support an entire system in the community. And the matching grants that we're going to be discussing are actually one of the, poster childs of how this work is done, by collaborating, by leveraging, by trying to support an entire ecosystem rather than doing it piecemeal in different ways. So I think that this is probably one of the best examples of collaborative philanthropy and a positive response, not only to the situation of camps, but something that we can learn from in any aspect of Jewish life. So I'm very grateful for the Grinspoon Foundation for the work they're doing and for the leadership they took. They are not alone. This is a partnership effort, as I said, with the camps, with the Foundation for Jewish Camp, with the movements, with the camp systems. But I think that their leadership is actually catalyzing a lot of action in this field. So without further ado, I'm going to give the floor to Winnie Sandler Grinspoon, board member of JFN and a president of the Harold Grinspoon Foundation.
Thank you, Andres, and good morning to everybody. It's great to be with you. So, background. The Harold Grinspoon Foundation has been investing in Jewish overnight camp for many years now. Years ago, my father-in-law, Harold Grinspoon, who is participating in our call today, although is currently muted, experienced as a funder, really the beauty of camp, the importance of camp to the community, and he narrowed his focus on supporting camp because it was a great return on investment for the Jewish community, as he says. And so he got on a plane and flew around the country and looked at not-for-profit camps and looked at for-profit camps and determined early on that what we needed was to invest in camps in a way that helped them become stronger organizations. One of the ways we have been doing that over the years is by working with camps to help them in their fundraising capacity, and then challenging them with challenge grants to raise money for priority items that they need to advance their camp and advance their mission. And so it is with that background that we sat together as a board a couple of weeks ago and looked ahead for what this summer might look like, and obviously quickly realized that camps were in trouble, and we were at a moment where we really had to do something different than our ordinary efforts. And having invested so much in camp and believing so strongly in camp, this was the moment really to go back to our board and talk about digging into our corpus and going beyond our annual spending to try to make a difference here. We also did a calculation early on about what will happen to the ecosystem of camp if camp cannot happen this summer and if camps lose all tuition dollars from this summer. And it's a tremendous number. We estimate there are about 160 Jewish overnight camps in North America. And if they all do not operate and pull in no tuition this year, it will cost about $110 million to $150 million, give or take, to make it to next year. That means returning tuition dollars. It means supporting operating expenses, having already expended quite significantly in preparation for this summer, and then regular operating costs to keep the facilities, pay taxes, et cetera, and pay core year-round staff. And so it was with that lens that we voted as a board to make an additional allocation for this year of $10 million targeted towards summer camp. And we chose summer camp because we know the field, we have experience and have had success with challenge grants. We have a team of professionals we call mentors that work with a portfolio of camps, and so are helping with the marketing of a challenge and the execution of the challenge. And so we're excited. We also know that the camps are, they need something in their back pocket to go to their funders with at this moment, because funders are, the needs are so great across the Jewish community, across the general community. It's important for our camps to have a challenge to go to their funders with. And so with that, I would like at this point to pass the mic to Sarah Eisinger, who is, we're so pleased to serve as director of JCamp 180, which is our program at the Harold Grinspoon Foundation for Jewish overnight camp. And Sarah, why don't you take it away and explain the details of the match?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Winnie. And thank you to JFN for hosting this, and to everybody, good afternoon. I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going on now, building on what Winnie has talked about in camping, give you a bit of update sort of as of today, where the camping sector is. And I'm going to introduce the All Together Now grant and talk to you about some of the specifics. We're also going to hear then from Yakov Fleischman, who's the camp director of Camp Stone, who's going to talk to you about what's been going on at his camp and the impact of the grant so far. And then I'm going to finish up after Yakov about ways that you can get involved and how what opportunities we see for the larger donor community. So just a quick update on where we are. By our count, approximately 23 camps have already announced their closures for the summer of 2020. I know you've all been seeing this probably in the press. You know, the biggest by far is the URJ movement, which announced last Thursday, but JCC camps have closed in different places around the country. Camp Wise, Camp Tamarack, JCC Maccabi Camp, Ranch Camp in Colorado, just a variety of camps. Ranch Camp, you might have heard, is pivoting to a family camp model as a different intervention for how to have the 2020 summer. So that will be, that's kind of an interesting pivot. And then several camps have announced delayed openings. So we're hearing about camps all over the country assessing whether, you know, in their locale, whether they feel comfortable and safe to open, or, you know, whether they're making the risk analysis that they've decided not to open. Many camps are still waiting and seeing and trying to decide over the next coming weeks if they're going to open or not. Camp Stone actually is in that camp. The CDC, along with the American Camp Association, are developing a set of guidelines for camp about how camp could safely open. And so we will be seeing really all the decisions. I think in the next few weeks, it will be sorted out about what's going to happen with the camp season. And what's difficult about that set of decisions is that, you know, we know that the COVID virus will be present in camp. And so the evaluation for camp directors and their communities is, how are we going to deal with that safely? How do we manage that risk? And so you're seeing a lot of different communities make those decisions about what's right for them in their community. I want to talk a little bit about, you know, the financial difficulty Winnie articulated sort of on the big picture side, but I want to help you, and many of you know this, but I want to just make sure that we all understand the why. At the beginning of the COVID crisis 6 or 7 weeks ago, we saw very immediately kind of a loss of the spring revenue. So many of the camps that we work with, the overnight camps in particular that have really good facilities, have been relying on spring revenue from retreats or other gatherings, revenue generating gatherings at their sites. They also lost revenue from galas and other fundraising activities. So right away there was this loss of that spring revenue. Enrollment also really ground to a halt, and tuition dollars that really would have picked up over the spring really halted, as you can imagine. Not many camps, a little over 40%, have endowments, so they don't have a lot of cash reserves. So while camp is a really good bet and it's a sustainable business, the issue is they don't have a lot of endowment and other resources to rely on, reserves. We know that there's this looming issue of tuition reimbursements, that if camp is canceled or even partially canceled, that the obligation of those camps to return tuition is really problematic and financially crushing for the camps. And so as we came into this All Together Now grant and tried to conceive of it, it was about how do we get emergency dollars effectively now, very early into the process, into the camp system, and then how does that inspire donors and in the rest of the community to come in to try and fill the gap. We know that our piece of it is really only one piece. When he talked about between 100 and 150 million, if our match is a 2-to-1 match, so we're talking about a potential pool of 30 million there. So that addresses part of the problem. We know that the government stimulus in the United States is one other problem, but those two pieces together we haven't solved for the whole crisis, and so there's an ongoing crisis in the community. I want to tell you a little bit about what camps are doing now, just to place them sort of in the life cycle of this crisis. They're actively engaging donors, and that's really in the midst of their own staffing furloughs, layoffs, and other staff corrections that have been going on. We've been seeing that across all of the movements and all of the camps, including the independent camps. They're also, though, been in this very active period of community engagement. I'm sure a lot of you have seen in your own camp communities this incredible breadth of online virtual programming. I think that's been one of the silver linings of this entire process. And that has been, you know, the Shabbatons and the Havdalahs and the song sessions and the bingo nights and the alumni groups that have gotten together. I think that's been just this very bright spot. It shows the importance of camp. And then all of them now, you know, day camps and overnight camps are really looking at virtual programming for the summer. They're collectively looking at platforms of how to offer that, and they're all grappling with how do they potentially monetize that over the summer to try and bring in some revenue, or do they offer that free to their communities. They're all, many camps are really thinking of that. So the camps are very actively working on these multiple fronts in the midst of the crisis. Our altogether now grant of $10 million is across approximately 100 camps and was developed to be unrestricted dollars. It's a 2-to-1 match. And there's a special kicker in it in that for tuition dollars, for if families and parents want to donate back their tuition if camp is canceled or if the family elects not to come, the match will then become a 1-to-1 match. Every camp was allocated a threshold amount of their match, and that was based on effectively camp size. We did a calculation of camper weeks and camper beds. It was a formula that we developed to effectively and fairly lay out the $10 million across all of our camps. So they will meet that, they meet their own threshold, and then they will have to raise obviously over and above that to meet their own needs. So I'm gonna pause now. I'm gonna get into more of the details, and I wanna show you some of our tools and resources. But I'd like to now turn it over to Jakob Fleischman, who will give a little bit more color to what I've been talking about. So Jakob, I'm gonna kick it over to you, and then I'll come back and talk some of the details.
Thank you, Sarah. Really a pleasure to be here. My name is Jakob Fleischman. My spouse, Esty, and I are the co-directors of Camp Stone. We're a Jewish overnight summer camp located in Western Pennsylvania, affiliated with B'nai Akiva, which is the youth movement. And we've, thank God, run the camp in a very financially responsible way thus far. We actually took over the camp. It had tremendous debt. And through a lot of careful planning and enrollment and hard work over the last number of years, we've been able to get to a point where we were solvent. And actually, we had sort of like a big event in February where we paid off another piece of a large loan, and then this coronavirus hit a month later. So we weren't coming into this with a lot of debt, but nevertheless, even having been responsible, looking at this summer, we're facing huge financial losses. It's actually really expensive not to open. It's probably worse if you open partially and you don't know what your numbers are going to be, because obviously all the fixed costs of opening have to be outweighed by enrollment, but nobody has any idea how many kids are even going to be allowed in camp, and the guidelines haven't even been published. So, and then how do you choose which kids come to camp, and how do you deal with those types of things? So of course, we've pushed off the decision at our own campus. We struggle with those things. one thing that's been really a bright light in all of this, and something that I think all of you should consider and understand just how impactful it is this matching grant from the Grinspoon Foundation. Now, I guess as a disclaimer, I'm a big fan of the Grinspoon family and the Grinspoon Foundation, so I suppose I'm biased, but I have to tell you that it's been an incredible experience to have conversations with people and to tell them about this grant and to see how effective it is. I do a lot of fundraising for our camp personally. I really enjoy it, and I love creating partners over Jewish education and what we do at camp, which I think is the most impactful thing in the world. But what's been amazing is that it's been helping in two different categories, which actually line up, not coincidentally, with the two sort of tranches that they've built. There's a one-to-one match for people who are returning tuition dollars. We have a lot of families who are on scholarship. We give a lot of scholarship out. And we help people every year that can barely make it work, even when there isn't an economic crisis. So those people, and then we've had about 12 cancellations. I've spoken to all those families individually. Every single one of them has made a donation. Some of them are on scholarship. They've given me $50. I mean, I was in tears. It's just the most unbelievable thing. Others have given me $1,800. There are people that after I told them about the matching grant, emailed me and said, I don't know what the plan is, but if camp is canceled, you can take the entire tuition. I mean, imagine that, you know, because they're so inspired by the dollars that we're getting from Grinspoon. And then on the other side of it, I have donors that I get money from every year. Well, our year, for example, our fiscal year runs 10/1 to 9/30. I've done a lot of fundraising, but there's a lot more to go, and we've got the whole summer ahead of us. So there's a lot of donors out there who had not yet given money, had not yet fulfilled their pledges. And this is sort of a weird time to ask, you know, because a lot of them are in financial trouble with their businesses, despite how wealthy they may or may not be. So this totally gave me a window to be able to say, hey, look at this. There's this grant, and if you give, you know, if you give us a gift this year, there's a 1-to-2 match. So I've had success with 4 or 5 of those, and it's only been a week or two. So I would say it's given me more confidence as a fundraiser. It's given my entire camp a boost, and it's definitely a piece, though not entirely, the solution. So I guess if I could just implore anyone out there who's a donor or who considers doing these things or who has access to foundational money. At this time, camps need unrestricted dollars to help them. There are a lot of wonderful things that foundations do out there. What I thought was so impressive from the perspective of charity of tzedakah here was that the Harold Grinspoon Foundation said, we're just gonna give you cash. You do your part and we're gonna help you. And that's what we need right now because we have to survive to next year. I don't know what my solution is going to be to get to next summer yet. And this is definitely a part of the solution. And I hope that there's other help also. So thank you to the Harold Grinspoon Foundation for all the help so far. And that's my story. I hope that that's helpful. I wonder if there are any questions. I guess I'd be happy to answer any questions or.
Yeah, Tamar Friedman, I think we'll take questions maybe at the end, but I don't know if there were any specifically to Yaakov. I think we could take 1 or 2 now.
Nothing has come in yet, but
okay.
I encourage people to use the chat function throughout, and we'll try to get to all of them and a more interactive conversation later on. Thank you.
So what I wanted to do now, Tamar Friedman, could you just show me hands up, thumbs up that you can see my screen? Great.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
So I wanted to spend, Yaakov, thank you so much for giving color and heart to what we're all talking about. It's very meaningful to hear about your camp and your experience. And I think what we've heard over and over from the camps who have received this grant is that it was had a very buoying effect and provided this psychological lift and an actual lift. And so I think it's been serving, excuse me, multiple purposes. We've developed this website. It's a landing page for prospective donors. It's called jcamp180.org/donors. We'll put that in the chat for that link. And this is what I'm showing you now. I want to walk you through some of the logistics of the grant. So It's $1 from Harold Grinspoon Foundation for every $2 raised by participating camps, and I'll tell you who is participating. We developed this decal, this kind of stamp called the All Together Now for Jewish Camp, and we intentionally wanted to make it very inclusive. It's really not about us, it's about camp, and it's about you all, and all of us in this together. So we encourage anyone who's involved and interested in getting involved to use this decal. We also have a Facebook decal that you can put on your Facebook page. So it's unrestricted money, I think I said that. If they don't operate in full, it then goes down to a 1-to-1 match. You can see that here. And as I said, the camps have been assigned a maximum grant amount based on self-reported information in the census, which is executed by the Foundation for Jewish Camp, our partner, in 2019. And then there's a little bit about gifts that are eligible to be matched and gifts that are not eligible. We're trying to make this as simple as possible, but there's obviously, we're trying to get cash in hand. And then I wanna highlight two different things. We've sorted the camps by region and by movement, across movement. We have about 100 camps in our JCamp 180 network. Those are camps that have been affiliated. They've applied to join JCamp 180. And when they apply, you know, they talk to us about their governance structure, their financial makeup, a little bit about their facilities, their staff, and how they define themselves as being Jewish. And so we evaluate them and invite them into the JCamp 180 network. The larger community of overnight camps is 160 overnight camps. Why do we not work with those 60? Well, some of them are newer camps, some of them are smaller camps. So for a variety of reasons, we're working with these 100 camps. So if you're interested potentially in getting involved in this opportunity, this is a great page for you. You can talk, we can show you the camps by region. So Camp Daisy and Henry Stein, the movement is AIJC, that's the independent umbrella association. It's in Arizona, and we've given you contact information. So you could get involved by supporting a camp directly, or clusters of camps either by region, by movement. We've shared by movement here. So AIJC again is this independent group, and then it goes down into B'nai Akiva, B'nai B'rith, Habonim Dror, etc. Independent, who are not in the association, JCCA, URJ, Ramah, etc. So I'd be happy to take any questions about the All Together Now grant or other ways you can be involved, and I'm sure Winnie and others would be happy to help answer questions.
Great, thank you so much. And with that, I really do, like Sarah said, oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. There was one other thing I wanted to share with you.
Please.
As I share my screen, sorry. JCamp 180 has done a range of wraparound supports, excuse me for interrupting you, Tamar. We've developed on a parallel track to this campaign is a toolkit. And so these are a set of resources that camps can access through their mentor and then just here through this website. We've developed some campaign strategy and talking points. We have a sample press release template. And then there's sample letters and emails about how to reach out to your families, to your major donors. We have tip sheets. We have the logo here, and then peer resources. We've been doing weekly drop-in clinics for all the camps that are involved in the All Together Now campaign. So they've been sharing really real-time tools that they've developed. It's been incredible how they've been sharing and collaborating. Here you see Tamarack has an announcement video. Eden Village has this incredible calculator on the back end about how families can donate. It's a very tactical and technical thing, but these resources have been hugely helpful. So I just wanted to share that with resources as well with you. So I'll stop sharing, we can answer questions.
Thank you, that's incredibly helpful. It just really shows how the foundation was really looking at it in so many different ways of how to support the camps right now through this time. And with that, I want to encourage people to, you can either put your questions in the chat box, which I see we're getting some in, but we purposely made this into the meeting format on Zoom so that you can unmute yourself one by one and ask your questions directly. If you want to like raise your hand to do some kind of reaction button to give us, to let you, and then I'll go and unmute you, that will be helpful. And we'll try to get to as many people as possible. So we have a few other questions that have come on in the chat, and I will go through one of them. Are you still adding camps to JCamp 180? And is she correct in understanding that the only camps that are currently part of your JCamp 180 program are eligible for this grant? And that her colleagues at her local federation were wondering if the match would be available for camps such as Camp Shalom Day Camp, which is, so I guess it's two different questions with JCamp 180 and also the day camp question, as well as this specifically for overnight camps.
Yes, to the first part of that, of Samantha's question, the challenge that we are extending is only available to the 100 overnight camps that we are currently working with. So we unfortunately are not able to offer the same match to the day camps for a couple of reasons. One of which is that day camps don't actually do a lot of fundraising on their own. So a challenge grant to a day camp is not workable in our normal structure, number one. Number two, in terms of the overnight camps, as I said, we work with about 100 camps out of about 160 that we know of in North America. And so, you know, a majority of the camps are part of the match. And are we still adding camps to JCamp 180?
Sarah's back.
I'm going to.
I'm back.
You're back.
Hi. Oh my God. Okay. Are we still admitting camps? We admit camps by invitation only, and our last application was late 2018, and our next court came in 2019. We put a pause on that in 2019, and we don't have plans right now. We had thought we would be admitting camps potentially later this year, but we're reevaluating that. So when we are ready to announce new camps coming in, we'll let everyone know, but at the moment we're not.
Thank you. Andres, I know you wrote a question that I thought you can come back.
Yeah,
on.
I have actually a comment and a question. I guess that my question was, is there any estimation of how many of the parents that already paid tuition are going to decide to donate it? If what happened with these 12 families that Yakov mentioned do you think is a representative sample, or anywhere between 0% and 100%, where do we think we're going to land in terms of tuition donation? But before you answer that, I wanted to make a comment that for me is very important in this program, that the camps that are part of the Camp 180 are actually camps that have an ongoing relation with Grinspoon and receive, support, and they were actually quote unquote vetted in some way. So I think it provides funders with a certain level of security, because they say, well, these camps are solid. They've been, there's a layer of vetting work that the Grinspoon Foundation has done on these camps, and it's important for other funders to leverage that experience that Grinspoon has. So that was a comment. But the question is what Tamar said. What do you think where are we gonna land in terms of tuition donation?
Oh yeah, Yaakov, that'd be great to hear from you.
So I think it's a tough question to answer. My prior career was in law and real estate, and every time I asked a partner at a law firm a question, the answer was yes and no. So I guess that's my answer to you, because it depends how it's structured. I do think that it provides an opening in a conversation, even for inexperienced fundraisers, to really have an honest conversation, because you know, the conversations I've had have been 12 different conversations. Remember, people are canceling for different reasons. I do believe that you can get 100% participation, and that's what we're going for. I don't think that's ambitious. I think that this is the sort of thing that speaks to people and they understand the kind of crisis that we're in. I mean, again, when I say 100% participation, it would be easy to say, okay, you have X number of campers and you got $400 as like your, you know, deposit back from everybody. That's not the way this is going to go. Some are going to be very, very generous if they can be. Others will give you what they can, and some of them are struggling. I think if there's 100% participation from my parent body, and that's what I'm aiming for, I don't know. I'm not, I mean, I give people guidelines and I tell people what I think, but I'm very transparent. If I get that, I think that will also help me next year when I tell all the other donors, listen, I need more help this year than last year. And believe it or not, when we had this crisis in 2020, every single parent involved, you know, gave something back. That's a very powerful statement. So I can't tell you a dollar amount, but I can tell you that I think that I am hopeful that it is everybody.
And Yaakov, I would guess that you will see something from everyone, and the vast majority also will want a refund of some amount because of financial need. And I love the idea, and we are as well, the URJ, going forward and giving folks 3 different paths forward, one, and any combination thereof. So we lead with the donation of their registration fees, which may mean not just their amounts that they've paid already, but additional monies coming forward. The ability to credit those fees to other future programs, not just camp. And the third is a refund. And we've given them sort of a form to fill out so that they can apportion as they need and feel equipped to do so in their particular financial situation. But it was great to be able to tell our families that if they are able to donate any portion of their registration fees, that it would be matched. It's a tremendous message, and it gives them the confidence that they can, know that they're just not, leaving money on the table, as it were.
Thank you for that. I got another question that just came in saying, can one give not to an individual camp, but to a region or a camp system? In other words, can somebody add to the pot? And whoever would like to, I got a thumbs up from Winnie. So I guess that's a yes. Winnie, do you want to comment on that a bit more, or anybody else want to comment on how to best do that?
The answer is yes, yes, yes. We don't want this to be our exclusive grant. We would love matches. We would love participation in any way that a donor wants to join. So if there's a donor that wants to extend the scope of the entire match and join and add to the 10 million pot, we welcome you. If there are donors who want to, and it doesn't have to be at the 10 million level. So please don't feel frightened by that number, but if there's somebody who wants to give $1 million, and we will apportion it proportionately across the camp, the match will go further. So instead of a potential for 30 million, we go even further. So that is, of course, welcome. Secondly, if you care to divide giving to just the URJ camps, or just the camps in the southern region of the country, or just camps that are new and don't have a deep alumni base, and so they have less people to fundraise funds from, we can pick up the phone and call Sarah, call me, call Harold, call Tamara, any of us, and we can help you navigate through, with our understanding of the camps and our close relationship. We can divide this up for you in any way that works and supports your mission.
And I'll say, just to build on what Winnie's saying, I think the field needs that. And I know Daryl can attest to the camps are going to be able to get so far. That's why I think, thanks to JFN and others, you know, we're talking to our peers in philanthropy to say, you know, many of you might care about a particular camp. You went there, your kid went there. I think many people also care about the camp field, right? And camps. And so kind of we need that level of giving too, in addition to the beautiful gifts from people on scholarship who, you know, may or may not go to camp this year. And then another thing I'll say, just seeing a lot of federations here that, and including some folks from Toronto, there are some federations stepping up. There are some donors partnering with federations to step up in significant ways, definitely recognizing. I see Anna from UJA. I know UJA just made some really significant commitments, New York, that will go towards some of our match. I know we're, you know, talking to a couple of other federations, but many of you, and there are a few foundations we've talked to who've really said, we wanna work with our federation to make sure that at least your match is covered. So, you know, we can also very much talk to you about whether you as an individual, whether you together with other donors or together with the federation, we would love to talk about ways to help the camps locally.
Thank you for that. Another logistical type of question and detailed kind of question about the time frame. Is this retroactive to gifts that were given before the grant was announced, if people gave a few weeks ago? And to when is this running, this challenge grant?
Great. Can you hear me? Yes, the grant goes retroactive to March 30th, 2020. That was when we announced the grant. So that's 6 weeks back. And then it goes through, the camping goes through December 31st this year of 2020. So it's, we tried to give a long enough runway for camps to get through this season and then to have the fall to really finish the campaign. But camps have started very enthusiastically, you know, out the gate, but we're trying to take it as like a 6-month campaign, really, or 7-month campaign for them to have the appropriate amount of time to fulfill the whole match.
Great, thank you very much. So want to just give another moment or two if there's any more questions, either in the chat or unmute yourself and ask the presenters. We do have a few more minutes together here today. Okay. Wonderful.
I would like to ask Winnie and Sarah if, in general, do you have any other things coming down the pike? Are you considering, you know, what is the midterm plan for the AC era, for the after coronavirus era? Is there another, you know, match? Is there a rethinking of the J180 camp? Any thoughts, like beyond the matching grant, any thoughts you have about the field, given that you can observe it from 30,000 feet?
Sure. Do you want me to take that, Winnie? And
You go first.
okay. Well, what's interesting about the pandemic is it was a great equalizer in, and I don't say that in a positive way, but it's just the camps are all facing the same crisis at different levels. But there were still underlying problems in the camping field that we were already, all of us collectively trying to grapple with: affordability issues, recruitment and retention. And so to overlay this pandemic, we still have those underlying issues. And I think some of them will clearly be magnified. We're not going to bounce back to 2021 as if like everyone's just going to come back to camp. I think the recruitment and retention issues are going to be huge for 2021. There's going to be a long recovery period, multiple summers that it'll take to recover. So I think recruitment and retention and then affordability, I think, will be particularly highlighted next year as families have been facing this economic downturn. How are we going to get all those people to come back for something that was already an affordability challenge? So I think over time, thinking about scholarships and trying to get families to remain in the fold and come back to the fold is going to be critical.
I agree with everything Sarah just said. I'm also concerned because our camps are taking out loans and receiving loans at this point. And remember, some of those loans have to be paid back. Not all will turn into grants. And so they work on tight margins to begin with. And so even if we succeed in raising the $30 million, this is what, as Sarah said at the beginning, it's only one piece of the puzzle. You know, we may lose some camps and some synagogues and some day schools and some of our cherished institutions in this process, despite our best efforts. You know, as a community, I hope we don't lose sight of the things that we thought were really important 6 months ago. We want them to be there, you know, next year. They may look different. They may be, they will be different, because the world will not revert back to as it was before this completely. So things will change, but as a community, we have invested in camp for a good reason. And so children, we have a next generation, and they will have summers, and we will want certain things. We will want experiential Jewish immersive experiences that are joyous and connective and inspiring for not only the kids, but for the counselors, you know, our teens, our young adults. So as I've said all along, you know, in this moment, we have to think ahead, and when we look back, what will we regret? Will we regret that we let camps fold? Will we regret that we let certain institutions fold without digging deep into our pockets and doing everything that we could have in this moment? Because it could happen, and it will happen for some of our institutions. Our stronger camps will be able to meet this challenge, and will be able to do the next challenge. You know, we'll be able to say, okay, we raised our full match on Grinspoon. Let's find another funder to do the next round. Our weaker camps may not be able to do that. You know, we have beautiful properties. These camps own some spectacular real estate that we will not get back if we let fall out of our communal hands. And so it's with that I just hope everyone will do everything possible and not and spread the word about this grant. That's another thing, another way in which everyone on this call can be helpful. You know, thank you to Daryl, who just did an op-ed to get the word out and share with people that she is joining. The more people who share publicly in our community that they have joined this match, they have helped their camp, they have helped a region of camps or a segment of the camp community, that has tremendous power. Other people join, and if we stay focused and we spread the word and we all dig into our pockets, you know, hopefully we can make a difference here.
Yeah, thank you, Winnie. That's powerful, and I think you just took the words out of my mouth. I think that this is the moment to act. This is, you know, my son, who learned to write journals at camp, is writing a plague journal, and he's telling, he says how he feels during the pandemic, and he writes it there, and he says, I want to show this to my grandchildren. You know, I'm going to be able to tell, you know, when I was little, there was this, and this is how I felt. And it got me thinking, because we also want to tell the next generations, what did we do as a community during the pandemic? Did we step up? Did we make sure that, you know, the community was strong and resilient, or we just, you know, said, you know, c'est la vie, and let the tidal wave wash us over? And I think that what you're doing, Winnie and Harold and Sarah and Tamar, is is really important. It is important as a contribution, and it's important as a statement to say, well, this is the time to step up and do things that we don't usually do, because these are very unusual times. And we want to look back decades from now and read the history of how the Jewish community reacted during the pandemic and be proud of what we did. So I wanted to thank you very, very much for that. Winnie warned me not to talk too much about their contribution. She said, this is not about the Grinspoon Foundation, this is about the field. But I think that their leadership has to be acknowledged. But she is right. This is about the field. This is about working together to save and to protect a system that is probably one of the key systems that sustain Jewish life in North America and all over the world. So please find ways to get involved. You can write the folks from the Grinspoon Foundation or us at JFN for more information, and above all, stay safe and healthy, and remember that these too shall pass. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tamar?
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. And like Andre said, if you have any questions or want to get connected with any of the speakers or learn more about this initiative, please reach out to me at tamar@jfunders.org. And thank you again for all of the presenters for sharing all of this today, and more importantly, what you do every day to ensure Jewish community being built in lots of different ways. And so thank you, and stay well, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Rose, thank you.